My parents sold my car without asking, so I sold their house key. They always told me family shares everything. So when I found out they secretly sold my car, the one I bought with my own money, I decided to share something back. Their house. One shiny brass key, one online listing, one ridiculously low price. By the time they landed from their little getaway, someone else already owned the deed to their life. And the best part, it was 100% legal. Stay until the end, because the final twist will make your jaw hit the floor.
Hey, story lover. Welcome to the Narrative Hub, Reddit Stories. Believe me, this adventure gets wild, but it's only epic with you. Seriously, you make this possible. Want more stories? Greater adventure? Smash subscribe right now. Smash like. Comment below. Let's go.
The driveway was empty. Not just empty, but aggressively vacant, a slab of oil-stained concrete where my 2018 sedan used to sit. I blinked, rubbing grit from my eyes, thinking maybe the heat was playing tricks on me. I had pulled a double shift at the warehouse. My back was screaming, and all I wanted was to see the glossy black finish of the only thing I actually owned. But there was nothing. Just the recycling bin knocked over by the wind. I pulled my phone out, my thumb hovering over the emergency contact list, assuming theft. Then I saw the text. It was from Gary Walker, my father. Or stepfather, technically, but the man who had raised me with a firm hand and an even tighter wallet. Took the car to the dealership. Got a great deal. We needed the liquidity for the anniversary trip. We'll talk when we get back. Don't be selfish about this, Kyle. Selfish? The word hung in the air like a bad smell. I stood there, the humidity pressing against my shirt, reading the message 3 times. They sold it. They didn't ask. They didn't borrow it. They liquidated my property because they wanted to upgrade their cruise cabin. My mother, Patricia Adams, hadn't even texted. She always let Gary do the dirty work. I walked into the house, the cool air conditioning hitting my sweat-drenched skin, and felt a calm wash over me that was far more dangerous than the rage I expected. The house was silent. They were already gone. They had taken an Uber to the airport while I was stacking pallets, sold my car, and jetted off to the Caribbean. On the kitchen counter, I saw the spare key to the front door. It was sitting in a decorative bowl, right next to a pile of unpaid bills they usually ignored until the final notice. I picked up the key. It was heavy, brass, jagged edges biting into my thumb. Gary had always preached about assets. "Kyle," he'd say, "you have to leverage what you have to get what you want." "Okay, Gary, let's leverage." I went to my room, powered up my laptop, and logged into a local housing forum. It wasn't the main ones like Zillow. It was one of those gritty, unmoderated community boards where people sold scrap metal and bartered services. I cracked my knuckles. The plan forming in my head wasn't just petty, it was nuclear. But for it to work, I needed a specific kind of buyer. I typed the headline, "Access granted, unrestricted entry, immediate occupancy." I didn't list the house for sale. That would be fraud. I listed the key. And with the key, I included a very specific, legally gray contract I had downloaded and modified, a caretaker's agreement. For the low price of $1, I was offering immediate physical possession of the property to a caretaker for the duration of the owner's absence, with a clause that required a formal 30-day eviction notice to terminate the agreement. I hit post. The internet is a terrifying place. Within 10 minutes, my inbox was pinging. Most were bots. Some were skeptics. But then came a message from a user named Ryan Lewis. "You serious? $1, I can move in tonight." I checked his profile. No photo, just a silhouette. Perfect. "Cash on arrival," I typed back. "I'm handing over the key in 1 hour. First come, first served." I packed my bags. I wasn't going to be here when the fallout hit. I grabbed my essentials, my laptop, and the scant cash I had stashed in my sock drawer. 45 minutes later, a rusted pickup truck rumbled into the driveway, leaking oil onto the exact spot where my car used to be. Ryan Lewis stepped out. He was a mountain of a man, wearing a sleeveless shirt and looking like he had lived 1,000 hard lives. He looked at the house, then at me. "You Kyle Stewart?" he asked, his voice like gravel. "That's me." I held up the key. "You have the $1." He flicked a crumpled bill at me. I caught it. Sign here, I said, handing him the clipboard with the caretaker's agreement. This makes you a legal tenant until formally evicted. It stops the cops from dragging you out for trespassing. Ryan read it, a slow grin spreading across his face. He signed with a heavy hand. So the fridge is stocked. Fully, I said, and the master bedroom has a jacuzzi tub. Enjoy. I handed him the key. He didn't say thank you. He just marched up the walkway, unlocked the front door, and disappeared inside. I watched the door close, the click of the deadbolt echoing like a gunshot. I got an Uber to a motel across town. I needed to be far enough away to be safe, but close enough to watch the fireworks. 5 days passed. 5 days of silence from Gary and Patricia. They were sipping Mai Tais, spending the money from my car, completely unaware that a stranger named Ryan Lewis was currently wearing Gary's bathrobe and watching their 60-inch TV. Then Sunday happened. I knew their flight landed at 2:00 p.m. I knew they'd take a cab home. I parked my rental, a beat-up compact I got with the last of my savings, down the street, obscured by a large oak tree. I needed to see this. At 3:30 p.m., the taxi pulled up. Gary got out first, looking tan and smug in a floral shirt. Patricia followed, struggling with a duty-free bag. They walked up the driveway, chatting, probably talking about how relaxing it was to be away from me. Gary reached for his keys. He slid his key into the lock. It didn't turn. I watched through binoculars. Gary jiggled it. He pulled it out, wiped it on his shorts, and tried again. Nothing. Ryan must have engaged the internal deadbolt, or maybe he changed the locks himself. The prompt said I just sold the key, but Ryan was an enterprising guy. He had secured his perimeter. Gary started pounding on the door. Kyle, open this door. Kyle, if you change the locks again, so help me. The door swung open. It wasn't me. Ryan Lewis stood in the doorway. He was shirtless, holding a half-eaten sandwich, looking down at Gary with the indifference of a stone statue. I couldn't hear the exact words from down the street, but I saw Gary's body language shift from annoyance to pure, unadulterated terror. He stepped back, nearly tripping over Patricia. Patricia dropped the duty-free bag. A bottle shattered. Ryan took a bite of his sandwich and leaned against the doorframe. He pointed a thumb back into the house, clearly explaining that he lived there now. Gary turned red. He pulled out his phone. He was calling the police. I knew he would. That was part of the plan. 10 minutes later, a cruiser rolled up without lights or sirens. 2 officers stepped out. They approached the porch. There was a lot of pointing. Gary was waving his arms, screaming about intruders and theft. Ryan remained calm. He reached into his back pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. The caretaker's agreement. The officers looked at the paper. They looked at Gary. One officer shrugged. I saw the resignation in Gary's shoulders. They were explaining the law to him. Civil matter. Tenancy established. You can't just kick him out. Ryan Lewis wasn't an intruder anymore. He was a resident. The police got back in their car and left. Gary and Patricia were left standing on the sidewalk with their luggage, locked out of their own home, staring at a stranger who was now legally occupying their sanctuary. My phone buzzed. Kyle, where are you? Who is this man? Pick up the phone now. I ignored it. I was already driving away. But the story doesn't end there. See, I mentioned a twist. I told you the final turn would make your jaw hit the floor. I didn't just sign the house over to Ryan Lewis for $1. I did a little research on Ryan before he arrived. I knew who he was, or rather, who his brother was. Ryan's brother was a mechanic. Specifically, the mechanic at the dealership where Gary had sold my car. When I met Ryan that day in the driveway, I didn't just give him the key. I gave him the spare key to my car, too. The one Gary forgot to hand over to the dealer. Ryan's text came through on my burner phone as I merged onto the highway. Bro picked up the Civic from the lot. We swapped the plates. It's in your parents' garage. Thanks for the house. I smiled. My car was back in my possession, hidden in the very garage Gary was currently locked out of. And the best part? Since Gary had technically sold the car, he couldn't report it stolen without admitting he sold it illegally without the title in my name, which I had in my backpack. He was trapped, homeless, carless, and facing a 3-month eviction battle with a guy who looked like he chewed glass for breakfast. I tapped the steering wheel. Leverage. Gary was right. You really do have to use what you have.